Is there a chance that these will be the two best teams for their respective institutions? Not each one of them, but collectively that we will see by the end of the season. Could we look back on 2025 and say these are the two best teams from these two institutions on one field at the same time?
In the history of what?
Good question.
In the history of
I'm assuming like the best combined, combined game as far as team quality go.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Well, 2021, both teams came in ranked, and there was all this hype about.
Yeah, 2021 would be up there. Now we ended up stumbling down the stretch a little bit, but going into the game, that was a very big deal going into that game because Iowa State was a top 10 team.
2019 was also pretty high because game day was at that game.
Game day was at, well, yeah, it's funny because game day was at 19 and 21.
Right.
I'm aware of both of those games and the situations involving those teams. That's why I asked it.
Yeah.
When you look back on this season, because Iowa State stumbled to 7-6 that particular year.
Right.
Iowa won the West, but were they really that good in 2021?
What'd they do?
And then in 2019, obviously, Iowa finished 8-5. I don't remember Iowa State.
7-5.
Hold on a second.
Well, we both.
No. Iowa won 10. They won 10 games, Mark, in 2019. You're confusing the years. They won 10 games.
No, I'm not confusing anything. I'm just saying they weren't that great.
You said they were no. Hold on a second.
2019, not 2021.
Yeah, you said 2019.
They won 8-5.
No, they did not. They won 10 games. And that's what I'm trying to correct you. They won 10 games in 2019.
They beat USC in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, that's right.
The Holiday Bowl.
So anyway,
there's so many 8-5s to work through.
If you're looking at besides 19 and 21, the only other one I can think of in the at least recently that Corey and I would have any memory of would be maybe was it 2002? Brad Banks. Iowa State ended up winning that game fairly handily in Kinnick, but that was a pretty good Seneca Wallace team, and Brad Banks was on the Iowa team. That was maybe the only other one besides 21 and 19.
But see, like that was kind of the opposite. Like we didn't. I think after, and I was 6 years old, but just history of that. Like we didn't know that Iowa was going to end up being really good that year when they lost Iowa State. I mean,
right?
It was so early in the Brad experience.
Wasn't that 2003 that Iowa won the Rose Bowl?
No. They haven't won a Rose Bowl under Kirk,
or not one Rose Bowl. The Orange Bowl against Carson Palmer and USC and all that. Wasn't that 03, or did they lose?
Yeah, it was the 02 season.
02 season. They lost in the year 2003. Okay, yeah,
correct.
Okay,
yep,
yeah.
So I mean, that could be the. I think for me, it would probably just because I don't have as much recollection or early 2000s. It'd have to be either 19 or 21. Probably 21 because I do think that like the game day matchup was more legitimate in 21. I feel like in 19 they were there because it was a rivalry and they were two good teams, but I don't remember thinking like these are two really good teams. This could be a really good Iowa State team, and heading into the year I had Iowa winning 9 games. We'll see if they end up being a good team, but I mean, I would probably still say 2021 for me because remember, Mark, Iowa State was not only coming off that BCS Bowl appearance in 2020. Iowa closed that season out with 6 straight wins. Yeah. May have been more had Missouri and Michigan not canceled. So. Yeah, I think that one would probably be at the top of my list as far as pregame hype.
Yeah, coming into the game, I think it's got to be 21. Yeah, but this is a good one.
Yeah. Do you remember the little tribute I made for you after that game, Levi? You don't remember the little bit of tribute I don't know if I do. Post it on YouTube. This was before. Yeah, this was pretty early in the life of my platform. So I think I looked the other day and it had like how many views did it have? Maybe like 300. Views, which a friend of mine said, how does that gem not have more than that? So anyways, but yes, and I didn't call you out by name, but it was just a lot of the pre-games. There was a lot of confidence from Iowa State going into that game.
I mean, I feel like that confidence at the time was deserved. I mean, you had
and I think it's deserved this year.
Yeah.
I think it's deserved this year.
I do think we can talk about it too. I think the difference between that 2021 team and this team there's big differences that are very important for this.
Okay, so tell me what the differences are, because heading into 2021, what I remember you saying is that they had better linebackers than Iowa, better tight ends than Iowa, better corners than Iowa, better quarterback than Iowa, better lines than Iowa, and better special teams than Iowa. So
I would be surprised if I brought the lines. I'd be surprised if I brought the lines into it. Because
you said
Iowa State fans,
in
the Matt Campbell, Iowa State fans are noted like skeptics of the offensive and defensive line. But I mean, I would not be shocked if I said quarterback, running back, tight ends, linebackers and maybe safeties. It would
real quick, the most laughable one, and this isn't your fault because Iowa State had good linebackers, but you had no idea who Iowa's linebackers were. And I remember you calling Jack Campbell, "Oh, he's tall." Okay. I hope you learned your lesson.
Tall.
I hope you've learned from that. But I hope you learned from that experience, because Iowa also the linebackers just dominated that game. You had Seth Benson with a pick. You had Jack Campbell with a touchdown. You had Justin Jacobs with a strip that ended up in a touchdown. Brock had a horrible game, and Matt Hankins had 2 picks in that game. It was the week before Riley Moss had 2 picks against Indiana, and then it was Matt Hankins against Iowa State.
Yeah, Brock had a rough enough game. We saw Hunter Deckers that game.
We did see Hunter Deckers that game. Think about that, Mark. They pulled Brock Purdy.
And then Hunter Deckers won Kinnick the next year.
I guess he did.
Well, what a world we lived in.
If you consider, what was it, 10-7 winning?
Listen, there's a W next to that. There's a W next to that game on the schedule, and that's what matters.
Arlen Bruce.
If there's anybody that can appreciate an ugly W, I feel like it'd be an Iowa fan.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, last year was weird. I mean, we don't have to reflect on last year's Cyhawk game, but that was a weird game because if I recall, it's been a long time since I went back and watched it. But and I'll probably do that this week.
I watch it probably weekly.
Of course you do. Thank you for admitting that. But I just want to say, I remember at halftime of that game last year being like, man, it feels like Iowa dominated that first half, but it was like a 1-score game. It was something ridiculous. Iowa dominated that first half last year, and it was way too close.
They dominated a couple early possessions. Like there was the first 2 possessions of the game when they had Iowa State backed up inside their own 10. And Rocco threw I think it was a pick 6 there. Like those first 2 possessions were obviously Iowa dominated those because of field position and all that. The rest of the first half, I don't think it wasn't like it wasn't a massive gap or anything like that. I think the first 2 possessions maybe skew that, but I mean, obviously Iowa won the first half. But
they could have been more opportunistic with.
They could have been. Yeah, they absolutely
the play they had in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but then the second half, obviously, Iowa State put some things together and it worked.
And I think this is going to be a less vitriol-based discussion this year, Mark, because I said after the Albany game, and I haven't come out with my game pick yet. I had Iowa beating Iowa State preseason, but I also take into account results every week. And I said it after the Albany game, the games between Iowa State and South Dakota versus Iowa and Albany, the results were really flipped. Like I expected Iowa State coming back from Ireland, a tough battle against a Big 12 team, to struggle against a solid Missouri Valley Conference team. And I expected Iowa to roll in an opener. And the other aspect of Iowa State's schedule was that's a perfect time for a letdown. Mm-hmm. And it was really the opposite. They didn't let down at all. They just absolutely obliterated South Dakota, whereas Iowa comes out of the gates really slow and struggles first half, got it together, dominated the second, but it just didn't look like Iowa fans wanted it to look. So I said after the game against Albany, I'm like, at this moment, there's no way I, with a straight face, could pick Iowa to go to Iowa State and win next week. And that doesn't mean it can't happen. And I think I've missed this. I've picked this game the last 3 years. I've missed every one of them, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know who I picked in 2021, but I know I've missed my last 3 picks. And so that makes sense because the road team has won the last 3 years. Well, right. More than that, actually, last 4 years. Wait a minute. Last five years because they didn't play in 2020.
Because they didn't play in 2020.
The road team has won the last 5 games in this series, Mark. Now, Iowa's won 3 of those 5, and they'll have a chance to win 4 of 6 this year. But I don't know what to expect Saturday. It just, to me, it just totally depends upon, can Iowa establish the run early, and will Mark play like Mark is capable of playing? I mean, I'd like to think he's going to shake off the rust, the jitters. I think going on the road and playing away from Kinnick is a good thing. I'm sure happy that they got Albany to shake some of that off, but until I see it, I can't count on it. Maybe some people can. I struggle to jump on that train, and I do think Iowa's back end, the corners, could prove to be susceptible. This isn't news to Phil Parker. That's why they brought in a guy from that South Dakota program to help them at corner. And Shahid Barros has not really emerged as one of their 2 or 3 best corners. So, yeah, I mean, Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall are going to have to play great. You're going to have to see great play out of Cohen Entringer and Xavier Wampa. I thought the D-line got better as the game went on, but I did expect them to be a little bit more dominant against that Albany front. And they weren't really. And I give that Albany quarterback credit. He played well. And they could be a better I said that too. They could be a better FCS team than we think they are. Like the new coach, they got the transfer portal. Teams do make that kind of jump, especially at that level. That's possible. But nevertheless, there are areas that I'm a little bit concerned because they just weren't as dominant really anywhere except the run game as I expected.
There's a couple things you said in there that I wanted to add on to. Actually, one thing I did think of earlier that you had mentioned in the very beginning of this before I hopped in, the forecast for Saturday is 65 and partly cloudy. Perfect. But anyways.
Wow, that's cool. That is really cool, Anna. That's got to be one of the cooler days we've had so far this summer.
The last however many Cyhawk games in Ames were hotter than sin, man. Yep. It turns into a frying pan. But anyways, so
time to bust out the old black uniforms, right?
Yeah, I would imagine they're going to wear those gorgeous red script helmets again.
But by the way, real quick, I don't mind the script helmets. The Coyotes script helmets were better. I mean, those are awesome.
They're pretty cool.
Those white yotes, they say yotes on them, Mark.
Yeah. So great. we have ones that have a red script cyclones on them. Yeah. We've worn them for a number of games. Those are pretty sweet too. So anyways, the point you brought up though about how the results from this past weekend were a little bit flipped from maybe what we thought might have happened. And that goes actually back to what I was kind of alluding to before with the difference between this team and the 2021 team. So the 2021 team is an interesting because obviously talent level off the charts on that team. Tons of NFL players all around the ball. But that team,
both sides
was
both teams.
Oh yeah, both sides of the ball. Yeah, NFL players on all over the place on both sides of the ball. That team was very up and down all that season. We saw them. There was times where they'd play up, they'd play down. They weren't winning close games. That was the dig against Matt Campbell for a long time, is they didn't beat ranked teams, didn't win close games. Since Rocco Becht has taken over and since Taylor Mauser has become the offensive coordinator, they've now won 10 of their last 11 one-score games, and they've now won, I want to say 5 in a row against ranked opponents. So they're taking care of business in close games and against good opponents. This team, Rocco Becht, God bless Brock Purdy, the greatest of all time at Iowa State. Rocco Becht is the antidote to Brock Purdy's chaos that he at times played with. Rocco Becht is the absolute antidote to that. He is as rock steady as it gets, and especially with the game on the line in a fourth quarter situation, it's a one-score game or it's a tie and he needs a big third down. You about bet your mortgage on Rocco Becht making the play. He just has over and over and over again made every play that Iowa State needed to win a football game. Does that mean he was perfect for the first 3 quarters? Absolutely not. But what it does mean is that when you need a play, when Rocco needs to step up, Rocco is the quarterback you want under center. This team, I think the 2021 team, if they had gone to Dublin and then played that second game, they might have lost that game, because I just don't think that team wasn't where it needed to be mentally or whatever it was. There's a level of maturity, professionalism, whatever you want to call it, culture, I guess if you want to call it that too. This team that to be able to go off of a really difficult travel situation with the Ireland game, to come back and just take South Dakota, who's a very good FCS program, just take them back behind the woodshed and play damn near a perfect football game on both sides of the ball. I think it's pretty remarkable that a team is able to do that, and it's led by a lot of really talented players too. And we'll get more into this game, but I think that's the difference I was talking about, the 2021 team and this team. This team feels like the depth is there, and the team culture is just too nebulous of a word to really describe it, but the feeling is that this team is just much less susceptible to the high highs and the low lows. That they're going to be a much more consistent team throughout the season, just because of the roster makeup, the leadership on the team, and things like that.
Here's my question. I think the matchup, if you're going to look at a specific matchup to follow, it's Orange and Jones, right? That has to be.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah,
the matchup. So my question is, let's look for a second at how Iowa played, because the one area where Iowa really did dominate Albany the way you're supposed to dominate a team of that level is up front on the offensive line. And I thought they protected Gronowski fairly well too, but especially with that ground game, you didn't know totally what to expect with a couple of new starters. And I thought the left tackles played well. And then Cade Pieper played well. So I'm just curious. That's the question for me is Iowa going to be, they're not going to go out and run for 300, but are you at all concerned with line play from Iowa State? I know Orange is really good, but are you concerned that maybe Iowa dominates on the ground for a while?
I mean, yes and no, because I mean, obviously that's what Iowa's going to try to do. So that's your main focal point there. The good part about Iowa State having played 2 games already, but then one also played Kansas State ahead of time, is that while Kansas State is a little bit more dynamic on offense, they've got some better athletes. It's the same general concept. You're still running kind of like you're still running calling Iowa a power spread is tough, but it's kind of you're not that far apart. Kansas State and Iowa are fairly similar teams, just with different athletes at skill positions and stuff like that, both offensively and defensively, actually. So Iowa State has has played well against a fairly decent analog to Iowa, because ordinarily Iowa at this point in the season is completely different than anything Iowa State's going to play till like November. Iowa State's already got that off the schedule and already beaten a team like that. So that's encouraging. And we saw that Kansas State is who won was, I want to say they were top 5 in the country in yards per attempt on the running game last year. They were very, very efficient in the running game. Held Kansas State to virtually nothing on the ground 2 weeks ago in Dublin. And especially with a very good running quarterback in Avery Johnson. So Mark Gronowski being able to run the ball is obviously great for Iowa. That's a different dimension that they just have not had in a long, long time. Iowa State has already played a quarterback that is a better runner than Mark Gronowski. Now, does that mean that he's a different runner? He's not nearly as physical as Gronowski can be, but
Gronowski likes the contact. I don't know. That
Avery Johnson is a coward.
I've never seen it. I'll say this about Mark on Friday, Saturday, and he would say the same thing. There wasn't a lot to look at. There was like, wow, he was really good. But he came in and there was one play where they called forward progress when he got hit. And I mean, the defender blitzed and ran right into him, and he just took it and stood there. And then they blew the whistle as he's throwing, which they shouldn't have blown the whistle, but he really does look for content, Mark.
He's a physical runner, and he's a point of emphasis for Iowa State as far as tackling goes and stuff like that, making sure you're not missing tackles, which through the first 2 weeks, the defense has done a very good job of tackling and wrapping up when they need to. But as far as to get back closer to your original question with Dominic Orange, who is an extremely good defensive line, nose tackle. He had a good game in Kinnick last year. He's had 2 very good games so far. With the way Iowa State's defense is structured with a 3-3 stack, I mean, the nose tackle he's the linchpin of the entire rest of the operation in defending the run. So if Dominic Orange plays up to his ability and plays kind of like he did last year, that's a great start. We've seen a promising start from McKinney Eziogu at one of the other end spots, doing a good job shooting gaps. He knocked down, I want to say 3 passes against Kansas State, batting them down at the line of scrimmage. He's really big body. He's like 6'6", 285, big size. It was always kind of a question of like motor. He's newer to football, so it's getting up to speed with the college game and his motor and stuff like that. But the early signs of this season so far have been very good. You have Tomatolo McDonough on the other side. The other defensive end has had a couple good, he's not played a ton of snaps so far, but the early returns are fairly good. The big thing with Iowa State that they'll have this year that they didn't even have last year in the Iowa game is having lots and lots of depth at linebacker. So far, the only major injury we've seen there is Carson Willich. It's not really a major injury. He's just questionable for Saturday. But Caleb Bacon has had a good return to form after missing basically all of last season. Cooper Ebel's been really, really good the first 2 weeks. Will McLaughlin, Cale Berzina, I would say that a really nice showing from the linebacker group so far, and the depth that we knew that we thought the linebacker group would have, where they could play 6, 7, 8, even maybe 9 guys some games and feel pretty good about it, has largely come to fruition. They've been as good as we kind of hoped they would be. But part of Iowa State's run game, too, is the safeties. The safeties are a massive part in defending the run for Iowa State and coming down and meeting guys at the line of scrimmage. And fortunately, Iowa State's safeties have been better than advertised. They've been good enough. They moved Jeremiah Cooper to corner to make room for another safety in Kyjon Cummings-Coleman. Kyjon Cummings-Coleman, Marcus Neal, and Jamison Patton have been a very, very good trio of safeties so far. Cummings-Coleman has had, he's a freshman, so he's had like a couple spots where he looked like a freshman, but for the most part, he's been very, very good. Marcus Neal was incredible in Farmageddon. If you guys watched the game, he was a safety coming up and regularly hitting Avery Johnson at the line of scrimmage on the read options. He was very good. So right now, I would say its run defense looks pretty good. They've got lots of depth there. It's where if I were to try to sit back and go old school like Sean Green, just try to pound and pound and pound and pound and pound, I would say it's got the depth to withstand that for quite a while. We'll see. The scheme wise, it'll be. So in my opinion, it'll be largely dependent on scheme and winning individual matchups, winning individual running back talent, things like that. So I don't know if worry is the right word, but like it's definitely like a focal point when you're defending Iowa, like it is any other year. But they've got a good stable of running backs, but I would say it's got the defensive depth to sit there and withstand a persistent Iowa running game.
I just figure that I sit here for an hour and you guys will just
well, I thought it was a good time to let you interject, Mark. I
didn't know if you wanted to just toss in something real quick, or
I figured you'd want to chime in.
Well, I thought there was no question that Iowa State, even though it was still a ball game with about 3 or 4 minutes left, that Iowa State was a superior team to Kansas State, at least on that day. They were just the better football team, and obviously could have pushed it in for another score.
Well, but they were the better football team down the stretch, but it was not apparent at halftime. I mean, that game was really close.
That was the diverging point. The second half, Iowa State was very clearly.
Yeah, I agree.
Ahead.
I agree.
Yeah. The first half was ugly because of the weather and first.
And so now a lot of Iowa fans are pointing to Kansas State's struggles against North Dakota this past weekend. What do you make of that?
If just knowing from experience and knowing how consistent of a program Kansas State is, I wouldn't read into that, because they also had a very difficult travel situation.
Yeah,
Iowa State handled theirs very well. Kansas State obviously did not, and it's a really unique thing.
One's coming off a win, one is coming off of a loss too, and that's a different dynamic.
It is. They're coming off of a loss, off of a tough week of travel, coming back, and North Dakota is also a very good FCS program in their own right. It's kind of funny how the Dakotas and Montanas are like the cream of the crop in the FCS. But North Dakota is on par with South Dakota essentially as far as a quality FCS opponent. I really would not read into Kansas State, keeping close with.
Now North Dakota, I did look this up. North Dakota is projected to be toward the bottom of the Missouri Valley this year.
Are they? Okay,
that surprised me, because that is a good program.
I think the last 5 years they've been pretty good.
Yeah, but South Dakota is projected to be again toward the top.
They were preseason top 5 in the FCS poll.
Yeah, I'm surprised by all of it. Mark, what do you make of? Did you see any of the Gronowski struggles? I mean, you were sitting there watching condensed highlights. Were those condensed highlights? Did those include some of his throws that were just like nowhere close to their intended receivers, Mark?
A couple. Yes.
Okay. I mean, what do you make of that? Because the one I'm like, boy, is he, because honestly, having had shoulder surgery, I know what it's like to not be able to throw and like try to throw where you want to throw, and like the ball ends up 20 feet short of where you're trying to throw. So that's what my thought was, like, this guy looks like he just came off a shoulder surgery, but he's been healthy and throwing full speed for, the last 2 months. So, I mean, but Kirk continues to say he'll be fine. It was, he's just amped up. He compared him to Drew Tate. He said Mark hides it a lot better than Drew did. Drew, before the game, would just be so amped up, wants to do so much. And that's what he said Mark was suffering from. It just Mark deals with it a little bit better. And he thought he settled down as the game went on. But, he kept saying how this was his first game at Iowa. He's played a lot of football, but it's his first game at Iowa. And I get that. I mean, I do get that. But I just don't like I guess what I have a hard time with, and everybody's different, but we see so many quarterbacks that move from either FCS to Big Ten or SEC level, or just move to a different place, and they don't come out like that. I don't know. Now, Brosmer struggled early, I think, for Minnesota last year before he kind of got his feet under him. So maybe that's a better comparison, but I just haven't seen something like that to that extent.
Well, there could be something to, moving up levels, and not just the competition, because obviously the competition wasn't there on the field with him the first game. but it could be more so than a quarterback who moves from big school to big school, that with that jump, just having a little bit more pressure on them to prove that I belong playing at this level.
Yeah, and he played against Iowa in 2022, and he beat that Albany program. That South Dakota State team beat Albany 2 years ago, 59-0, and he had like 330 all-purpose yards and like 4 incompletions. So, just compare it. I know they're different teams, but same program.
The one I saw that seemed like a red flag, was it Seth Anderson that was wide open in the end zone? He hopped and he one-hopped
it was
to
Sam Phillips.
Sam Phillips. Yeah, Sam Phillips. The one hop to his waist that was 10 foot short. That was a little bit of a red flag to me. That's a
Well, the ball came out weird, and somebody said after the game that it was tipped. I didn't see it tipped.
But
the ball came out really wobbly and weird.
Yeah.
And it landed like at least 10 feet short of a
that
wide
was a
open
weird
Sam
one.
Phillips in the end zone.
That's a fairly routine throw.
But Kirk brought up today in his press conference the little hitch route out to, I think it was Seth Anderson on the left, and he said he's thrown that ball 1,000 times, and he grounded it like 10 feet short of the receiver.
That's why the two amped explanation is kind of a weird one, because I would think if you're too amped, you'd be overthrowing stuff versus, it could go either way.
I don't know. But it could go either way, I think.
Yeah,
but what else? That's the thing, Levi. What else is it? That's the thing. It's like, we keep saying, it's like, if this guy was just coming out of high school and he just really did suck.
Right.
But we can pull up tape of him playing major college football.
He can make those throws.
All those throws.
Right.
So,
if you're playing at any level of college football, Division III, NAIA, someone at Morningside can make that throw.
Yeah, exactly. So I would think he's not going to go from horrifically bad to just bad. I would think he's going to go from horrifically bad back to what he normally is. And I think that's what Hawkeye fans hope. So, and I think it'll be good don't you think, Mark, to go away from home to play on the road somewhere? And by the way, because he's played at South Dakota State in a place like Kinnick, he's done that before at this level. He's went on the road in front of a bunch of fans and played a better program. So not that Iowa State's a better program than Iowa. But I'm just saying.
I was gonna say,
Levi! Oh my God, he said it! I can't believe
what a Freudian slip that was there from Corey.
Yeah, you were just waiting. You've been waiting for that for 5. You better leave now. Leave on a high note.
It took my brain a second to register. I was like, wait a second.
Anyways, but he's done it before. So if he comes out on Saturday and is back to his old self, it changes my viewpoint completely. And I do think to some extent that will happen. I just need to see it.
Isn't it more reasonable to think that he's not going to be the old Mark Gronowski, but he's not going to be what he was last week, that he's going to make it about halfway back?
Why is that more reasonable? See, that's why is that more reasonable? Explain to me with logic why that's more reasonable.
Because for him to make an improvement against much better players in 1 week.
But this isn't a matter of he just turned into crap. It's not a matter of he just turned from good to crap.
I think Mark's saying though is that he's got a long ways to return to get to the mean, where it may not be able to all happen in 1 week, especially
but it wasn't like this massive sample size, Levi. It was a few throws in the first quarter. So it's not like we just saw him go out there and take a dump on his legs the entire game. They just stopped throwing. That's why I was frustrated by the fact they stopped throwing, because I'd like to see him work his.
I think Iowa just electing to just not throw the ball was actually kind of a fairly large mistake on their part.
But that's
we'll see. We'll see how
mindset.
large.
Kirk just wanted to get out of there. He's like, we'll forget this.
And honestly, I'm sympathetic to that. The tricky part though, you're looking at it because he was. He was 2.9 yards per attempt, for like 4 and change or 5 and change per completion, which is a extraordinarily low. Basically, they didn't ask him to throw anything.
Correct.
Like the few things they did ask him to throw were like little hitch routes, whatever it is, that were just nothing.
Exactly.
They didn't actually ask him to make any throws. That's and the ones they like the real throws they asked him to make were not good.
But they were the first quarter. Those were all in the first quarter.
That's right. So my curiosity is, why did they just never give him another shot at it?
Here's my guess, because I don't think it's a matter of they just thought he couldn't do it, so we need to just run the ball and win this game. I really do think there's a better chance, especially if it was Brian Ferentz as the OC, I'd feel differently. But with it being Tim Lester as the OC, I wouldn't be shocked if they had a conversation. Coach Lester and Coach Ferentz had a conversation. It was basically like, Brad's going to figure this out, Mark's going to figure this out. Let's get out of here. Let's not show Iowa State anything. We don't have to. We're going to run the ball and blow through this team in the second half anyways. We're going to be fine. And I think that's my guess.
Not that I gamble with a transfer quarterback,
but I don't ever buy into the whole Iowa played vanilla. But I think this year, given the circumstances on Saturday, there's more of a chance that happened down the stretch. Because like you said, they didn't ask him to do anything down the field. You can't possibly convince me with Tim Lester as OC that they're not going to be trying to make shots down the field at some point Saturday. I just can't imagine that. Unless they just run the ball down your throat.
I mean, if I was running for three bills, then who gives a shit if they get past for 40 yards? But like, I think it's reasonable to expect that they probably won't do that on Saturday unless something goes catastrophically wrong for Iowa State.
So they'll have to throw the ball. So why wouldn't you throw the ball down the stretch last week? They're not stupid.
It's just one of those things where, like, especially with transfers take a second to get up to speed. They just do. When you're changing programs, you're changing offenses. In his circumstance, you're changing levels. You have to, like, Iowa State's going to play faster than Albany did. He's playing in a new offense. Like, to me, the idea of holding stuff back on tape is one of the most overrated things that coaches do, is this weird thing of gamesmanship. Unless it's like a brand new coordinator. I mean, Tim Lester was the coordinator last year. I mean,
right, but there's not like, I think it's fair to say that they were limited with what they could do last year. They didn't have receivers that were capable of certain things, and a quarterback that was capable of certain things. And now I think they believe they have both of those pieces.
Yeah, the problem is we have no idea because we didn't see it.
But that's a good problem if you're Iowa. That's my point. That's a good problem. And if you're Tim Lester, that might have been the
risk reward is how much do you think you've got nailed down, and you feel like we don't have to run it this week to be able to run it against a very good defense in Ames next week, versus we need to run this and make sure we can do it.
Or the thought process is we've been running against our own defense, which is really good all fall camp. So why do we need to prove it against this Albany defense? That might have been the thought process too.
Maybe
this year is different because it was Albany, and this is a second-year offensive coordinator with finally have the quarterback and receivers that can create separation. I'm giving you a bit of a conspiracy theory, but I don't think it's that far-fetched.
It's not like I would be shocked if Iowa doesn't get somewhat more creative in the passing game. I mean, they have to. They have no choice but to get more creative in the passing game. If they don't and they can't run for 300 yards, they're going to have a long day. But, assuming they can't run for 300 yards, they have no choice but to do more in the passing game. So
I agree.
What we're going to see, I mean, it's kind of one of those.
Now the variable is, here's the variable. The variable is they wouldn't have to run for 300 yards and not throw any. Like if they threw for 50 and ran for 200 and the defense performs well, they've proven they can win games like that all day long. Now, I think they're going to have problems at times against that Iowa State passing game, because kind of in line with what you said earlier, and I know everybody here loves Brock Purdy. Maybe I'm biased because Iowa dominated Iowa State during his time here, but I, for one, think Rocco Becht is a more complete quarterback. And I will admit, I am very surprised that Brock Purdy has succeeded in the league. And I think part of it is the system he's in, but I'm very surprised he's succeeded in the league. And I think the fact that he was Mr. Irrelevant is an indicator that scouts are probably surprised that he's made it in the league. And I would have expected a guy like Rocco to be a better NFL pro. Maybe he will be. But
I can tell you exactly why why Brock is making in the league. And that is because while like a lot of his thing, one, when you can be out of college and you can work with a professional quarterback coach that can tighten up mechanics and things like that, that helps a lot. Brock had, for as many great things as he did as I did at Iowa State, many times it was in spite of not awesome, especially not great footwork, but not great mechanics. He was throwing out his
decision making. He had some bad
times. Yeah, absolutely. At times, absolutely. The thing though is that part of the reason that the 49ers latched on him, and the part of the reason he's done really well, is because his like mental approach to the game and how he chooses to learn the game is like just a different level than a lot of guys. And that's why he's able to overcome whatever physical deficiencies he's had. Plus, if you just watch him play quarterback now, he's just much more composed. He's not he's not Captain Chaos like he was at times. He is like super measured,
spinning to the ground while throwing the ball backwards.
Yeah. one of the ugliest plays of all time, which is funny because Iowa State won that game by like 3 touchdowns.
Or what about his final game as a Cyclone, right? Where he tries to bat the ball down.
You know what? Honestly, it's a goofy looking play, but you have to admire like the sheer will to win to even try that shit, to catch his own pass and try to still blast through a linebacker.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, you have to admire that, like as like a will to win type of thing. He was just doing what he had to do. But anyways, Rocco is a more. It's funny because we were just talking about this in our big wide right group chat or whatever. Is like I believe by the end of maybe even by midseason, but by the end of the season, I think the Rocco over Brock Purdy conversations will gain like quite a lot of heat. And especially if Rocco wins a Big 12 title, then he's gone. But just based on like a body of work and the pace he's at right now, as far as not just productivity, but as far as his team winning and the way they're winning.
How many Big 12 titles did Brock Purdy win?
0. That's what I'm saying.
0, and he never won a Cy-Hawk game. So how could those conversations not be happening now?
They are happening now. They are happening now.
I'm saying. I don't know how
they are happening now. The tricky part, though, because when you're talking about individual football players, you have to look at what they did and also what the team did. Now, the quarterback, you're going to tie more to team success than other positions, but you still have to look at Brock Purdy was still the most prolific player in Iowa State ever. You can't, there's no denying that. Left like 36 school records or something like that. Something dumb. But Rocco has been knocking him off the checklist. And right now, Rocco is on pace to pass Brock by the end of the season in terms of like the GOAT conversation. Because he just is good. He's good at, like, he doesn't have any major weaknesses in his game. He's a tough runner. He's a good leader. He's a good thrower. He throws a great deep ball. There at times last year he got a little interception prone, but most of that was trying to do too much at certain times.
So how does he attack Iowa's DBs? Because you understand that Iowa's corners have proven at times to be a little susceptible, even last year without Jamari. So Phil Parker knows exactly all about. He knows that not just from the Michigan State game, but from the Iowa State game, because that's why they lost down the stretch. They had that game in hand, and they gave up a couple of big pass plays, and that was it.
So if I'm Phil Parker this week, the Iowa State passing game is a very interesting challenge for me to deal with, because while you don't see like the two like the ultra high-end Biletnikoff type receivers like you did last year with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. You don't have that, but Iowa State has the passing game has been a fascinating thing to watch, because Iowa State is right now doing things with the tight end position that even Iowa has not really done. Through both games, we've seen 14 personnel. We've seen a heavy dose of 13. So what they're doing a lot of times, we saw this against Kansas State, we've seen it against South Dakota. What they're doing is a great example of this. They have a sequence that they'll go back and forth between how they want to run this. But basically, they'll come out in 14 personnel. So it'll be Ben Bramer, Gabe Burkle, Tyler Moore, and Cooper Alexander, all of them on the field, or it could be Keaton Roscoff in place of one of them if they're they'll start out in a heavy package, basically everybody tight, and then they will motion out and go to empty. They'll go to empty 5 wide with a running back and 4 tight ends. They'll check their matchups. If the defense has expanded to meet those and to cover guys one-on-one and to bracket that coverage, they're happy to run QB power with Rocco, who's a very good runner. But what they did against South Dakota, and unfortunately, some poor bastard kept getting matched up on Ben Bramer.
Wait, who was it? What was it? Who was he?
What?
You said someone kept getting matched
up.
Oh,
so some poor bastard kept getting matched up on Ben Bramer. It was a corner. There was some poor corner kept getting matched up on Ben Bramer, who was routinely given one-on-one coverage with a 6-foot corner, who was pretty regularly 7 inches short and 2 steps behind. And it just was it's just a matchup issue. And then there was other times in the game they start empty in 14 personnel and come into heavy and then run like some sort of like a sweep or whatever it is, and use all of that size advantage to plow through. So if you're Phil Parker right now, you are having to game plan 13 and 14 personnel, where you're having to figure out what you're going to do when Ben Bramer and Gabe Burkle at 6'7" and 6'6" end up matched up on your corners. You have to figure out how you're going to defend that. And that's a huge advantage for Iowa State, because Ben Bramer and Gabe Burkle are very, very good tight ends. Ben Bramery right now is better than Charlie Kohler ever was.
Who's the
when he's
biggest?
healthy.
When I've watched Iowa State here these first 2 weeks, is it Skildson? Is that how I'm pronouncing? Am I pronouncing?
Yeah, number 9, Eskildson, the receiver.
He seems to be the best
very
deep
good.
threat. Am I fair in saying that?
It's kind of funny because right now through the first 2 games he has been the best deep threat, but I would not put him necessarily in terms of ability. I would not necessarily put him ahead of Dominic Overby, who caught the first touchdown against Kansas State, the nice little ball over the top. They're both. I mean, Dom Overby is like 6'5". He ran a sub 1100 in high school. He's a deep threat. He did not do much last week. He wasn't asked to do a lot.
Say he didn't have a catch.
Yeah, he really didn't play much at all last week because Rocco went 19 of 20, and I believe 18 of those targets went to tight ends.
Well, Skildson's average last week was 39.
Yeah.
And the week before, what was the week before? His average was
20 something probably.
Yeah, against Kansas State, it was 15. But
15, yeah.
They've
been perfectly happy to throw him deep balls. It's funny because Iowa State's first passing play of the game went for about 20 more yards than Iowa's total passing game against Albany.
Yeah, I saw the first. I was eating at a Mexican restaurant locally here, and of course it was dead because everybody's at the game.
Everyone's at the game.
And I'm like, wow.
There's Corey just munching on some queso while Iowa State beats the shit out of South Dakota.
I told people on the postgame show, but I actually went in to the game. I had a ticket to go into Iowa State versus South Dakota just to scout out because it's been a while since I've been. It's been 2 years since I've been in.
What'd you think of the new video board?
I honestly didn't even notice. Is it on the south side or north side?
The north, the big one on the north end. That's like 100 feet.
I went over and stood around the hillside area where they were warming up.
Okay, yeah. So you couldn't have even seen it.
I wouldn't have even seen it on that side.
Yeah.
So
no, they got a brand new video board and the sound system's rips now.
Okay. I took a picture the other day. I went in the front of the football complex and I took a picture of that. All these people, including Iowa State fans, that like to make fun of Iowa for hanging banners because of bowl trips and they got a trophy in there. You guys got a trophy in there because you qualified for the Big 12 championship game. You didn't even win a division.
Did they give a trophy for that?
There's a trophy. You want me to show it to you? Here, how about I show it to you?
I don't care.
No,
Whatever.
You want to see it. Mark, I know you want to see it.
What you should have looked at is the fully functioning toaster trophy from the Pop-Tarts Bowl last year. Greatest trophy in sports.
Does it really function?
Oh yeah, it's a toaster. You can plug that bitch in and make a Pop-Tart in it.
What a ridiculous situation.
It's incredible. It's the best. It's the best trophy in sports.
Mark, here it is. That is the trophy, and I can zoom in on it so you can see.
That's a fun little. I mean, the championship trophy is way cooler, but that's
Mark,
right.
What do you think about that?
Big 12
championship finalist.
No.
I mean, come on.
It's worth noting Iowa State did not make the trophy.
But why are we giving out trophies? Trophies. We're giving away a big trophy.
I would be shocked if the Big Ten doesn't do the same exact thing.
Does Iowa have Big Ten championship losses?
I've seen Iowa banners. I don't even know that I've seen it for the West Division. Maybe they have banners, but I have never seen a trophy for going to Indy.
I have photos of bowl participation banners at the Iowa practice facility. So,
yes,
it's like
banners, these cheap flags. This is a full on.
Yeah, you have to go. Iowa went out of their way to order a banner. Iowa State is simply displaying a trophy given to them by the conference.
Yeah, it's so hard for them to put in an order for a banner. I just
had to go out of their way to say, you know what, we participated in some bullshit bowl that we lost.
It's more of a disgrace on the Big 12 conference than it is Iowa State. I'll say that.
Okay,
I'll say that.
I would agree.
Whatever.
We don't have too much time, but let me push back on one thing that you said, Corey, in regards to Iowa could put together an offensive production that would be 200 yards rushing and 50 yards passing, and they've won plenty of games like that. Yes. Have they won any games against a team the caliber of Iowa State, only thrown for 50 yards and rushing for 200, though? I know they've done that against Northwestern and Purdue and whoever else on a regular basis.
I have a fun stat to throw in here that is related to this, but not going to answer the question.
Okay, two years ago, they went up to Madison and did it. Okay. 2 years ago, they went up to Madison and did it
against a Wisconsin team that was 7-6. Okay, got it.
Okay, so we know that
I expect this Iowa State team to be better than that. against a good team, like a top 15 team in the
you
country.
Expect Iowa State to be better than that. So in other words, you expect Iowa State to win at least 10 games because Wisconsin was doing that against the Big Ten. Iowa State was doing it against the Big 12. Oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with that argument. I'm just stating that Iowa did go up there with Deacon, Pillsbury, Throwboy, Hill, and they threw for like 40 or 30 yards without their best.
Big day.
Their only pass catchers were Eric, what's his name?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Eric Hall, Eric Hall, who's playing for the Bengals, I think. He was down with an injury, and Luke Lachey was down. But my point being, yes, Mark, come on. Get your toes out of the sand. They beat Wisconsin that way. They have done that over and over and over again. How many yards do you think they threw for against Penn State in 2021? That was a top 5 Penn State team. They had two big plays in that game. 2 big plays. One was to Regaini. One was another one to Keegan Johnson. They don't throw for yards ever, Mark. They have beaten decent to good teams over the last 4 to 5 years. They never throw for a lot of yards. It's sort of an odd. Wait, hold on a second, Levi. I'm not done ripping into Mark yet. I was
adding on to this conversation. So Iowa against Iowa State in the Cyhawk series, Iowa has not eclipsed. Has only eclipsed 300 yards of total offense one time, and that was in 2018 when they had 303.
And they've won what? 4 of those, 3 of the last 5.
Yeah.
4 of the last 6.
So
they've won more than
season.
that.
I posted Iowa's record against top 10 opponents and ranked opponents in the last 5 or 6 years, and it.
Okay.
Kurt
so again,
the answer for that it's getting really ugly.
You need to answer for why you're putting Iowa State in that category. So if Iowa State's a top 10 opponent, then we can have the discussion. But Iowa has played very well against everybody below that echelon. That's all I'm saying. As far as Iowa's ability to run, as long as they run,
I think it's fair to say that Iowa knows how to win a game that way. Will they? It's hard, who knows? But
if Iowa State's if Iowa State is the equivalent mark of Michigan 2 years ago, Ohio State last year, if you're going to put them in the Penn State 2 years ago, both,
I'm not doing that.
But if you're going to do that, then yes, Iowa will come to Iowa State. They'll get butt waxed and they'll go home. But I don't expect that to happen, A, because I think Iowa will throw the ball better, and B, because I don't think Iowa State, I think they're good. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're on that tier yet.
Well, no, 2 of those teams won national championships that you just mentioned.
That's my point. You're bringing up top 10 opponents. A lot of those top 10 opponents that Iowa have played have been Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Those have been the top 10 opponents.
The tricky part is you're painting yourself into a corner in that which the only teams that can beat Iowa when they throw for more than 50 yards and when they have a better game than 50 passing, 200 rushing is a national champion.
No,
that's the tricky part. You're kind of painting yourself into that corner a little bit.
All I'm saying is Iowa's inability to beat teams that way, I have only seen applied to the elites. Iowa has played, it's either been like we can recognize this. Iowa's schedule, especially prior to the new Big Ten look, have been all Big Ten West. So you have average to slightly above average Big Ten teams, and then some crap teams, and then you'll either play Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan. There's nobody else in that next tier now that Wisconsin's down, and Michigan State used to be in that tier. They're not in that tier anymore. So the teams that Iowa have played since like 2020 have basically either been average to below average or elite. And it's, like you said, Mark, against the elite teams, they don't play well. Hey, how many yards did they throw for in 2021 against Iowa State? Does anybody know? I mean, they threw for some because Charlie Jones had a touchdown.
Nate Stanley had a decent game that game.
No, 21. That was Petrus.
That was 29. Yeah, that was 2019.
2019. But they had a touchdown to Charlie Jones in that game.
2019 was a fascinating experiment in college football.
The 6 hour game.
Yeah, 6 hour thunder and lightning delayed fucking Datron Young running on the punt return.
I would, for me, I know for a lot of Iowa fans were more excited for this past weekend. And that seems like reverse of what you would expect because it was against Albany. But it was the hype of a new season and a new quarterback. So many people let down by his early performance. But I know as the hours have gone on, days have gone on, I'm more excited for this game on Saturday because the truth will shine through. If he goes out there and plays like crap again, then what I said after the Albany game, I'm going to be like, oh, crap. Like, what do we got here? I don't know, man. We just reevaluate everything at that point. But if he goes out there and looks like the guy from South Dakota State, I give them a good chance of winning. And even if they lose, because it's a good Iowa State team on the road, I'll still feel decently well if they can throw the ball well and still. I think if they throw the ball well and run anything close to what they did on Saturday, they're going to give themselves a good chance to win, because typically this game is decided by less than 7 points.
I was going to say something entirely different up until this last statement that you made, Corey. I was going to say that you seem less confident in Iowa winning this game than any game we've previewed, not any Iowa State game, any Iowa game we've previewed, other than them going to Columbus, Ohio. Other than those two games,
when have I
been?
I would agree that you've been fairly timid this particular one. Like not quite as like getting after it. I was going to dog walk Iowa State.
I am just being objective. I don't know what else am I supposed to be.
I'm not faulting you. I'm just making an observation.
Listen, all I have to go on is what we saw Saturday.
Yeah.
And what we saw the previous Saturday from Iowa State. And I know that may upset Iowa fans. That's all I have to go on. I have hope that Iowa will play the way I thought Iowa was going to play heading into the season, but I have to see it. And like I said earlier, I've picked the wrong team in this series at least 3 straight years. So I'm not saying I'm going to pick Iowa State this week, but maybe I should. Maybe I should just pick Iowa State, because maybe that means good things are going to come. But no, I think that's a little. You're being a little bit melodramatic, Mark. I hate to say it. You're being a little bit melodramatic, because there have been other games that I've been less confident in for Iowa to win than Iowa and Iowa State and Iowa Ohio State. Okay. Do you really think you think I thought Iowa was going to beat Michigan the second time around in the Big Ten Championship? I did not pick Iowa.
There are a few exceptions to what I just stated, but yes, they are very rare.
Make it largely a behavioral observation.
It is a road game against a top. What are they ranked now, Levi?
Has it actually come out today? I don't know.
What has come out? What has come out today are the rankings that actually make sense. The top 25 that actually makes sense. Do you know where Iowa State's ranked in the top 25 that actually makes sense? It's not based on preseason.
It should be at least top 5.
Number 6.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's about what I would have said. I say top 5, top 6. Yeah.
In the AP, they'll probably be in the 12 to 16 range, I would imagine.
Let me look it up real quick before I know we're late.
Have they come out this week? I have no idea.
They did. They are 16.
16. Well, there you go. 12 to 16. I was right.
They are one spot below Michigan. And okay. Iowa is 20.
I was ranked.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Well, to be fair though, Texas was at number 1 and then lost not great and still was number 1 on the ESPN.
Yeah, they haven't done anything. They have not done anything, and they're in the top 10 still, Mark. That's called stupidity. That's a perfect example. No. That's a perfect example of stupidity. Yes, they played Ohio State close, but you're telling me there aren't more than 6 other teams in college football that through wins and through where do you have them? Do you have them in the top 10?
I have them like 14.
Okay. Texas. Yeah. I mean, I was not impressed by them when they played Ohio State.
I think you could argue they should be lower than 14. You could make that argument.
Well, you could, but you could also make the argument. I'm not saying this is a just argument, but there is an argument angle here. You could say that they're number 2. If Ohio State's the best team in the country,
logically speaking, they are the best team in the country, you could make that argument.
You could make an argument that they're number 2.
See, now you're sounding like AP voters. Okay? No, your logic. You are.
We do recognize that the top 2 teams in the country could play, and one of them has to lose.
But we don't. So now you're going to projections. You're going back to projections.
What are AP rankings if not projections?
That's why we shouldn't have AP rankings preseason.
I think all 3 of us are completely on board that AP shouldn't be ranking shit until about week 10.
But if you score 7 points and lose, Mark, what have you earned? I mean, okay, your defense held Ohio State to 10, but we're as a team, I maybe they're top 25 based on that, but there's 130 some FBS team. That's all I'm saying. People probably have no idea what we're talking about because a lot of the people here are used to the way AP polls and coaches polls are done every year. And it just is normal that Texas is still in the top 6 or top 7.
You're talking to a Big 12 fan here, yeah.
If we're talking about results on the field, Penn State should not be number 2 when a bunch of other teams went out and beat legitimate teams, including Iowa State.
Yeah. Nebraska should probably be, what are they? Are they ranked? They're not even ranked. I'd probably rank them at this point.
I've got them ranked again, I don't believe that they're one of the 25 best
I don't
teams
either.
in the country, but they have one of the 25 best wins in the
On
country.
a resume basis, they're
Yes.
top 25. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we all
absolutely.
agree that the polls should be based on resume, not what we think, not recruiting rankings, not transfer rankings, none of that.
Yeah, the idea that, I mean, you can do a preseason poll, but the idea, but like basically the preseason poll should be completely bifurcated from the week 0, week 1 poll. Like once there are
Correct.
games played, the preseason poll cannot matter. Period.
Correct. But then that means you're going to have to just wipe the slate clean and start with all new people every year, because those AP voters have no idea how not to look at these teams based on perception and all this crap. Mark does, but no, these other people don't have that concept, and they also don't watch enough football to be able to rank appropriately. No. They don't.
They can't. They physically
beat writers. You got guys who are literally team writers voting in the AP poll.
Well, they put their team affiliation on the poll,
and they spend their entire week and their entire Saturday watching their game and their game only.
Yep.
How stupid is that? The dumbest system we have.
Does anybody honestly believe that the Clemson writer is watching either the Iowa or Iowa State game that weekend? Absolutely not. They're not watching.
Now, this week might be their best chance of both teams getting look nationally. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the reality because it's a week slate.
Well, this will be Iowa State's second since we got the Dublin game.
Yeah, but, exactly. True.
Yeah. So that's why I think we're starting to make there. But the problem is the Big 12 is a perception problem, because the Big 12 had a real bad weekend last weekend, with the exception of Utah looked really good, and TCU obviously looked awesome last night. There's like a few teams that have looked really, really good, a few teams that have been and a couple teams that have, like Kansas State, that have been disappointing.
Yeah.
I still think Kansas State, you don't need to worry about them. I still think they'll win probably 8, 9, probably not 10 games, but 8 or 9 games they'll win. They'll be Kansas State. But right now the perception of the Big 12 is not working in Iowa State's favor. But I think people have seen them play through the first 2 games and be like, you know what? Because and actually it's funny enough, even the game last weekend against South Dakota was on Big Fox. It wasn't on FS1 or FS2 or ESPN Plus. It was on national TV,
which is
Iowa State's played an international game and a national TV game.
That's odd.
It really is odd, but it is what it is. So Iowa State's played 2 national games, and that is why, and they've played well in those 2, and I think that's one of the reasons that Rocco Becht was put on ESPN's early Heisman 5 or whatever, because he's been awesome and people have actually gotten to watch him.
And unfortunately, because of the way our sport is scheduled, the Big 12 is not going to have enough opportunities to disprove what they showed in the first week of the season. There are very few opportunities. This is one of the best ones.
Yep.
If Iowa turns into a 9-3 type football team, then this is going to be maybe the best win for the Big 12 this season outside the conference.
Probably. Yeah.
Unless Oklahoma State pulls off the unbelievable.
Unless Oklahoma State, does the most, somehow beats Oregon and Eugene, but
and so for the Big 12 detractor out there 6 weeks from now, they'll simply ask the question, what's the best win in the conference outside the conference? But the follow-up question should be, how many opportunities were there? And even though the Big 12 has largely not looked great, the opportunities are just so few.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there. So, I would love nothing more than to beat Iowa this weekend and then have Mark Gronowski magically turn into, Andrew Luck and let him do his thing. And then Iowa goes, 10-2. I would love nothing more than that. Then we can get Cy-Hawk first round playoff game in Ames. It'd be great.
All right, folks. Corey and I are headed to the main channel to do the Big Ten live show. We're leaving Levi behind. Levi will be doing his show on the Iowa State channel, and Levi simulcast here.
I will do that.
Everybody can park it right here and also watch Levi's show talking Iowa State, and that's at 7 Central, correct?
7 Central. Yep. 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central.